The first generation of jet fighters comprised the initial, subsonic jet fighter designs introduced late in World War II and in the early post-war period. They differed little from their piston-engined counterparts in appearance, and many employed unswept wings. Guns and cannon remained the principal armament. The need to obtain a decisive advantage and maximum speed pushed the development of turbojet-powered aircraft forward. Top speeds for fighters rose steadily throughout World War II as more powerful piston engines were developed, and was approaching transonic flight speeds where the efficiency of propellers drops off, making further speed increases nearly impossible. Meteor was the first British jet fighter and the Allies' only jet aircraft to achieve combat operations during the Second World War. The Meteor's development was heavily reliant on its groundbreaking turbojet engines, pioneered by Sir Frank Whittle and his company, Power Jets Limited. Development of the aircraft began in 1940, although work on the engines had been underway since 1936. The Meteor first flew in 1943 and commenced operations on July 27, 1944 with number 616 Squadron RAF. The Meteor was not a sophisticated aircraft in its aerodynamics, but proved to be a successful combat fighter. Gloucester's 1946 Civil Meteor F-4 demonstrator GAIDC was the first civilian-registered jet aircraft in the world. Several major variants of the Meteor incorporated technological advances during the 1940s and 1950s. Thousands of Meteors were built to fly with the RAF and other air forces and remained in use for several decades. The Meteor saw limited action in the Second World War. Meteors of the Royal Australian Air Force, RAF, fought in the Korean War. Several other operators such as Argentina, Egypt and Israel flew Meteors in later regional conflicts. Specialized variants of the Meteor were developed for use in photographic aerial reconnaissance and as night fighters. F-2H Banshee was a single-seat carrier-based jet fighter aircraft deployed by the United States Navy and United States Marine Corps from 1948 to 1961. It was one of the primary American fighters used during the Korean War and was the only jet-powered fighter ever deployed by the Royal Canadian Navy, serving the RCN from 1955 until 1962. The aircraft's name is derived from the Banshee of Irish mythology. The Banshee was a development of the F-H Phantom, although it was being planned before the Phantom went into production. McDonnell engineers originally intended the aircraft to be a modified Phantom that shared many parts with the earlier aircraft, but it soon became clear that the need for heavier armament, greater internal fuel capacity, and other improvements would make the idea unfeasible. The new aircraft would use much larger and more powerful engines, a pair of newly developed Westinghouse J-34 turbojets, raising thrust from the J-30's 1,600 lbf, 7 kN, to 3,000 lbf, 13 kN, each, since the larger engines had to fit within the wing roots. This required a larger and thicker wing with a span of 41 feet 6 in, 12.65 m, rather than the Phantom's span of 40 feet 0 in, 12.19 m. The more powerful engines also used more fuel, so the fuselage was enlarged and strengthened to increase fuel capacity. Navy leaders decided to move away from the World War II standard .50 caliber, 12.7 mm, machine gun to 20 mm, 0.79 in, cannon. 4 of the guns were mounted low on the nose to prevent pilots from being blinded by muzzle flash when firing the guns at night, a problem that vexed the Phantom with its top-mounted guns. The Banshee was designed to accommodate an ejection seat, a capability the Phantom lacked, and it incorporated a large number of improvements to other aircraft systems. The cockpit was fully pressurized and air-conditioned, and the flaps, landing gear, folding wings, canopy, and air brakes were electrically rather than pneumatically operated. The Messerschmitt Me 262, nicknamed Schwalbe, German, swallow, in fighter versions, or Sturmvogel, German, Stormbird, in fighter bomber versions, was the world's first operational jet-powered fighter aircraft. Design work started before World War II began, but problems with engines, metallurgy and top-level interference kept the aircraft from operational status with the Luftwaffe until mid-1944. The Me-262 was faster and more heavily armed than any Allied fighter, including the British jet-powered Gloster Meteor 5, one of the most advanced aviation designs in operational use during World War II. 6. The Me-262's roles included light bomber, reconnaissance and experimental night fighter versions. Me-262 pilots claimed a total of 542 Allied aircraft shot down. 7. Although higher claims are sometimes made, note 1. The Allies countered its effectiveness in the air by attacking the aircraft on the ground and during takeoff and landing. Strategic materials shortages and design compromises on the Junkers Jumo 004 axial flow turbojet engines led to reliability problems. Attacks by Allied forces on fuel supplies during the deteriorating late war situation also reduced the effectiveness of the aircraft as a fighting force. Armament production within Germany was focused on more easily manufactured aircraft. 9. In the end, the Me-262 had a negligible impact on the course of the war as a result of its late introduction and the consequently small numbers put in operational service. 10. While German use of the aircraft ended with the close of World War II, a small number were operated by the Czechoslovak Air Force until 1951. Also, it heavily influenced several designs, like Sukhoi Su-9, 1946, and Nakajima Kika. Captured Me-262s were studied and flight tested by the major powers, and ultimately influenced the designs of post-war aircraft such as the North American F-86 Sabre, MiG-15 and Boeing B-47 Stratojet. 6. Several aircraft survive on static display in museums, and there are several privately built flying reproductions that use modern General Electric J-85 engines. The Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star was the first jet fighter used operationally by the United States Army Air Forces, USAF. 2. Designed and built by Lockheed in 1943 and delivered just 143 days from the start of the design process, production models were flying, and 2 pre-production models did see very limited service in Italy just before the end of World War II. Designed with straight wings, the type saw extensive combat in Korea with the United States Air Force, USAF, as the F-80. America's first successful turbojet-powered combat aircraft, it helped usher to jet age in the USAF, but was outclassed with the appearance of the swept-wing transonic MiG-15 and was quickly replaced in the air superiority role by the transonic F-86 Sabre. The F-94 Starfire, an all-weather interceptor on the same airframe, also saw Korean War service. The closely related to T-33 Shooting Star trainer would remain in service with the U.S. Air Force and Navy well into the 1980s, with the last NT-33 variant not retired until April 1997. Many still serve in a military role in foreign air arms or are in private hands.